Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Debra Eckerling, author of your Goal Guide and creator of the DEB Method for Goal Setting Simplified. You can't reach your goals on your own, you need your people. So every week I bring together some of my people to dive into the topic of the week. And then on Thursday, it magically becomes an episode of the DEB Show podcast on the Marketing Podcast Network. So whether you're watching us live, the replay, listening to us, we are so glad you're here. And today's topic is life implosions. And I mean, come on, who hasn't had one or 24 of them? And a wonderful panel who don't mind sharing their life implosions and how they course corrected. So I'm really excited. Today we have my friend Jennifer Ballard. Jen and I have known each other for ages through My Kids Adventures, Social Media Examiner, but basically we're just gal pals. And I love sharing this. The moment we met in real life, because we knew each other virtually for months, it was like the girl scream.
The elevator.
The
Coming off of the elevator, literally.
Yeah. So basically, and I know Jen through a lot of ups and downs. And when this topic came up, I'm like, oh yeah, you have to be on it. We also have Jenny Calcoen, a newer friend who I met through our friend Marsha McComber. See, I got your name wrong, right? And I stumbled over Marsha's. So we've both been on Marsha's radio show, and she was very thoughtful to connect us. And Jenny will talk about her company in a minute, but it's Inner Earthquake. So of course she is here. And then we also have my Mango gal pal, MJ Fievre. And MJ's been on before as well. And she's just like a wealth of everything. So I'm not even going to begin to try and introduce you to her because I'll miss something and no one wants that. So let's start. Why don't you all introduce yourselves and also share why this topic of life happens, life implosions, why it's so meaningful for you to be part of this conversation. So Jen, let's start with you. Go.
Oh, first. Okay.
Alpha order gets you every time, Jen.
Yeah, I know. I married a bee. Well, when most people look at me, they see a person who's super positive, always happy, living a good life, always smiling, dancing, got a great life, married my high school sweetheart, 2 boys, they're both Eagle Scouts, live in San Diego, which is awesome. Got a glamorous job in marketing, working for a celebrity, which is pretty cool. But what you may not know about me is that lack of confidence and complacency almost killed my career. So I had a really great job. It started out as the stay-at-home mom's dream scenario of returning to work after a decade off. I volunteered at a conference and they loved me and hired me the next week. So it was awesome. Until it wasn't. I was there for 10 years. And one day I came in after a 4-day weekend, not that kind of 4-day weekend. It was not a good 4-day weekend. I was off on Friday for a funeral, a really rough funeral. And I didn't even get to go to the funeral because I got really, really sick that weekend. So I ended up taking Friday and Monday off. So that's 2 strikes. And then I came in on that Tuesday and bam, called me into his office. Jen, we're eliminating your job. So, wow. Yeah. So that was my big life implosion. And it was a rough time. This was about 1.5 years ago. And, it was really frustrating. I had worked there for 10 years, done everything there, built up the department, and then just, you're done. And that made me feel like a real failure. And it also made me realize through the rebuilding process that I never want to let myself get into that position again where I'm kind of comfortable and more complacent. And now I actually work for a motivational speaker. So I'm surrounded by positivity and growth every day in my work. And I'm also starting a side hustle called Joy Scouts to try to help women become more positive and happy and confident themselves. So that's my story.
Awesome. And I mean, not that your story is awesome. Like I said
Yeah.
before, we've been friends a long time, so I know. But really excited to have you jumping into this conversation because you know whether we whether we articulate it or not, we all have these implosions in our lives,
Yeah.
and we have to course correct. So I know the audience will get so much value from you. But let's jump from Jen to Jenny. Welcome, Jenny, Miss Inner Earthquake. Please share who you are and why you are are drawn to this topic.
Mm. So my company is Inner Earthquake. I work with women going through inner earthquakes who are rebuilding their lives and don't even think it's possible to ever feel happy again. And of course, I know nothing about this topic personally, right? I have a teacher who says we always teach what we most need to learn. So I went through my own substantial inner earthquake 23 years ago. On the outside, I had the perfect life. I had a successful career, was happily married. We looked well together. We looked like a great couple. We had the vacations, the house. I mean, everything that on the outside looked amazing. And life wasn't that amazing. I woke up a lot thinking, is this it? Which you're really not supposed to do in your 20s. And then the day came where I was diagnosed with cancer. I immediately knew on a deep level that I didn't want to live the life that I had gotten into, that I had fallen into. That was other people's expectations of what life should be. And so I informed my husband that I wanted a divorce. Um, So within a year, I was healthy, I was divorced, I moved countries, and I changed jobs. And it's not what I recommend anybody does, but that's just what happened for me. And so since then, I've been on my own journey, but I've also got passionate about working with women. I saw this pattern be repeated over and over. Women who are just kind of like, going along in life. There's nothing really wrong. It's not great either. It might be just, and then something happens, and something happens again, and something happens again. And all we try to do, it is a very common response, is to try and power through it. And eventually that gets you. And you go through an identity crisis. And that's where I come in. That's the space that I love to support women in. So that's it in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, again, not thank you for sharing your story. It's really, and part of why I do what I do is I believe people deserve to be happy in some, if not all, of their lives. And if you can't fix all of it, at least find one thing, one kernel that brings you joy that you can hold on to and help that to elevate you out. So, such important work in. I love what you said before. You know, we teach what we've learned or what we're learning, because that's what we're here. That's what makes us unique and super helpful. So I'm really glad to have you. MJ, good to see you. Welcome.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me. And I'm so excited to be here. And I feel it's going to be one of those instances where I listen a lot because I want so much to learn from Jenny and Jennifer. So I'm looking forward to everything you guys have to say. My name is MJ. I'm from Haiti originally. I'm now in Orlando, Florida. I have been attracted to this topic of implosions because I've always felt that my life is a series of implosions. It's always about starting over in the different areas of life. I grew up in an environment where there was a lot of violence in and outside the home. And all I ever wanted was control. And I felt that I was losing control all the time. I was always going through a season when it wasn't the violence at home. When I finally moved away from home, it was about getting on my feet, being on my own. Then it was about surviving about marriage, and then it was about becoming a caregiver for my mother when she was diagnosed with an aneurysm. It's always been a series of seasons and thinking, okay, after this season, I'm finally going to find stability. And then something else happens and something else happens until you realize that maybe that's what life is. Maybe it doesn't change. And maybe it's about adapting to those implosions and making the best out of them. So I run Badass Black Girl, the website. It's the name of the series of books that I've written about women empowerment and just taking control of your life as much as you can. And now with the website, I have a blog and I also have an advice column. Hey MJ, because a lot of people send messages asking me about my experience, not just as a survivor of violence, but also about faith, because I've always been very vocal about my faith. I'm an educator by trade. I'm also a professional writer and editor. So I talk a little bit about using the arts to just be successful in life. Again, so happy to be here and to have this conversation with all of you.
Well, I just remember because we were back in touch and I said, I want to have you on. These are the topics that are coming up. And you like were back immediately that you wanted to be part of this conversation. So again, as I was saying right before we went live, it's not probably the easiest conversation for some people to have. So I'm extremely grateful that you all are jumping out of your comfort-ish zones, comfort zone adjacent, to really dive into this. And one thing, in a life implosion, a hiccup for one person could be a life implosion for someone else. So let's start by defining that term. What counts as a life implosion? MJ, do you want to kick us off?
Well, when we started talking about it before this, I immediately thought about those situations where you are at a total loss of control, a situation that brings you more stress than you feel you can endure. And it's also touching on important aspects of your life, aspects that you care about, aspects that you feel that you want to be healthier. And it usually lasts for a while. So it's not just a bad day. It's an event that happens that changes the way you see life, the way you're able to function in life. That's how I've been defining implosion.
And what do you think, Jenny?
For me, a life implosion is like you just mentioned. It could be something minor for one person, but major for another person. And it's any time that something happens on the inside that causes a complete shake-up, an inner earthquake, as I call it, on the inside. They are existential in nature, and so they affect our sense of identity. It's whenever a role falls away, whether it's through a divorce or an unexpected job change, menopause, even empty nest, but whatever it is, all of a sudden we have a role change, and we realize that we attached importance to that role that we were in, and now that is gone. And so who am I now that I'm no longer fill in the blank?
So many people have that too. In one of my things I say all the time is, when you embrace change, whether it's by choice or by circumstance, but if you go at it with gusto, you're just much better off to come out of it on the other side, because you're not running, you're running toward.
Yeah.
Jen, anything to add on what counts? And we're friends, but I did not know all of that build up to the conversation. So, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other ladies said most of what I would say is about the control, the loss of control. a major life event, not knowing where you're going forward, what's going to happen in your life going. But I also wanted to point out, we're talking about life implosions, but there are some years that I can pinpoint as well that were life explosions. Like there's a good stress too, like a year full of stuff that's just so big and so life changing. Maybe it could be considered similar, not in a bad way, but in a good way where there's a lot of change. For example, one year I graduated college, I got married, we bought our first place, we moved. It was a huge year that totally rearranged life as I knew it. So I think there can be life explosions and good things, and also the life implosions, which is the topic that we're mainly talking about today. But there's good stress as well as bad stress.
No, I like that rabbit hole of life explosions. So Jenny, MJ, anything to add on the explosion front?
I love it because very often we find ourselves in a situation where we feel we should be more grateful for those life explosions. And yet we're carrying so much of what Jenny calls those inner earthquakes that we're not able to enjoy the beauty that comes with the good stress, the eustress. And it makes you feel even more miserable because you know that great things are happening, but you're trying to fix all of those issues. You're trying to figure out who you are now. Suddenly things are so different than you used to think they are, and it creates this paradox inside of you and makes those earthquakes so much worse.
Right.
Yeah, I think when I listen to Jennifer, I think about, oh, that's life happening when I don't get in the way, really. One universal law is that and everything is constantly changing. So are we. We know when things are exceedingly great that they might not always be like that, and vice versa. And so I feel like when I approach situations, new situations especially, with curiosity and just thinking, okay, I'm just gonna go and see where this takes me, that's usually when a lot of growth happens for me, for my clients, I've noticed. So maybe, some people call it flow, some people call, like I call it like getting out of my own way. Yeah. So I relate to that as well. Different words maybe, but yeah.
Well, I like the approaching with curiosity, running toward it and getting out of the way that way by asking questions and saying, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? Isn't that usually the question? It's like, okay, all this good and bad stress is kind of making my head want to implode/explode. What can I learn? And ask the questions. But other than approaching with curiosity, Jen, MJ, what are other ways to approach this collision of everything?
One thing that has been helpful to me is really figuring out what is it that I can control and what is it that I can't control. So often we forget to take a breath and think about those things. We cannot control how people are going to react. For instance, it doesn't matter how much they love us, they will react the way they want to react. We cannot control the weather. We cannot control the economy, well, to a certain level. We have to really differentiate what we can control in order to tread lightly and be able to move forward. I know that I can control the way I react. Sometimes my emotions are out of control, but I don't let them dictate how I'm going to react. I withdraw, take a deep breath, and when I'm better, then I tackle whatever challenge. So this awareness of your environment is really important, I think.
I like that too. Because if you're not aware, you just let life happen to you. But if you are aware, then it brings you a certain amount of power. Jen, anything else to add about embracing those explosions?
Yeah, I think looking at the long term or the big picture, stepping back from the minutia of what you're mired in right now, whether it's the positive or the negative, if you step back and look, okay, what's my life going to look like a year from now? How's this? This is just going to be a drop in the bucket of time. Sometimes that helps you gather a better perspective and realize that this will pass and it's just going to be a learning experience like Jenny was talking about, and approach it in a different way. If you look in the long term, look at the big picture.
That is so, and I am internal optimist. I am totally with you on it, but how hard is it really to look at the big picture when you're digging out? But you all have, before we go back to solutions, I know that you all have good things going on as well. So let's just real quick, you've shared your implosions, but I would love to hear an explosion example from each of you. So Jenny, what are you doing that's exciting you, that's exploding your heart in your business?
My business itself is, I love the people that I work with, the women that I work with. I'm going to roll out a word that might not, might be a bit controversial, but I would say I feel that my work takes place in a sacred sphere. When I'm let into somebody's world, and I get to observe the moment that they reconnect with themselves, when they lost that connection to themselves, that is the biggest reward that I can think of. So I absolutely love what I do. I wouldn't want to do anything else. I have something to compare it with. I was in corporate for 26 years, and this is many more times fulfilling, satisfying, makes me happy, brings me joy. So that's where my focus is at the moment. Yeah.
That's amazing. MJ, what are you working on that's got you all exploded excited?
Well, as opposed to something I'm working on, it's something in my personal life that's getting me really excited. So about 2 years ago, almost 3 years, my husband and I, we decided to leave South Florida and move to the winter garden area. And it was a scary thought because moving as a teenager or a young adult is so different than when you're an adult. Making friends is difficult. Adapting to a new flow of life is difficult. But we decided to set goals for ourselves and to come up with a plan. And yes, I was thinking about you the entire time. And we make goals for everything, work goals, friendship goals, faith goals. And it's been amazing seeing how actually planning those things bears fruit. So we're definitely in a better place now than we were 2-3 years ago. We found a community that loves us, plenty of friends. We found a church that we really love. And I keep thinking, wow, just focusing on targets and having a plan changes life so much for the better.
It does, because when you see that big picture, what you want to work towards, it's cool, it's exciting, it's motivating. So I absolutely love that. Good for you. Yay.
Thank you. And I wanted to piggyback on something that Jen said, because I use this strategy a lot, but I use it both ways. So it's looking at where you want to be in the future, but also doing a lot of visualization where you're already in the future, looking back. And I think it's that part where you're journaling about it, kind of trying to materialize it, looking back, that really helps me, where I'm able to see, oh, it's a week from now, and whatever the problem is today, I will have woken up and it will have been behind me. And being able to see that your challenges are just temporary, that really helps.
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. And I am, well, the first step in D for determine your mission is visualization. Think about the life you want. But I love this usage of visualizing those bumps or mountains in the road in the rear view and say, oh, look, I did it. Okay, then you just have to get to I did it, but knowing that you can.
Yeah.
It's really good tag team example, friends.
Yes.
So Jen, what are you excited about right now? Because you did go from a challenging work environment through
Yes.
an even more challenging job search, and you landed like amazing.
Yes.
But
Yes.
you tell it.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So my big life implosion was just like about a year ago, about a year and 3 months ago. And it was devastating. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to hire me. I'm in my 50s and, just scary, scary. And I landed somewhere that I absolutely love. I'm working for a motivational speaker, and I get the benefit not just of having a job and having health insurance again, but we're putting good into people's lives. We're putting good into the world, and I get to take all of her classes as part of my job. So it's, a combination of everything. I get the personal development myself, and I've met so many people and see people that this company is affecting and touching and helping, and it's just wonderful. So yeah, really, really happy that I came out of it in such a good way. So all those times that people say, oh, you'll look back on this as just a challenge, just a bump on the road, that is so hard to hear when you're going through it. It's actually, I'm seeing the fruits of that. So yeah.
You mean they were right?
Well, of course they are, but you never want to hear that when you're actually in the throes of this nightmare, So it's just hard to hear. It's hard to see. I mean, I'm the one who says look forward, but it's hard to do. So yeah, I'm really glad that it actually worked out. So, and the other thing I'm working on, part of my personal development is, never let myself get complacent. I'm loving this new job. I'm learning a new part of my field, a new angle in my field, but I'm also starting a side hustle that will hopefully sustain me at least in a small way, if not financially, then at least keeping my skills sharp into retirement someday. And that is
retirement.
Someday.
Okay, sure.
My husband retired this past year, so
I know, but we're so young.
I know. Well, he's an accountant. He's been planning and funding it since we were in our 20s. So yeah. So
okay,
he's like, I'm going to retire in my 50s. Anyway, but that's a whole diversion. But yes, I'm starting a new fun side hustle that will hopefully help women going through the empty nest years, kind of, even if you don't have kids. It's a whole bunch of life changes at this kind of age where you go, okay, I'm not busy driving the kids all around anymore, and they're more independent, or I'm less focused. I've left the corporate world, like Jenny said, or I'm just not as focused on that career drive. And it's like, what's next? It's time for me now. So I am starting a community called Joy Scoutz of midlife women, Gen X women, ready to move into the next phase, kind of figure out what's next, and to connect with each other and have, more time for each other and themselves, and date nights and girls' nights, and,
Well, it's funny.
Yeah.
Well, and I have the benefit because I know about this and I think it's awesome. But what MJ was talking about, which was moving as a grown-up and reestablishing community. That's almost a
hard.
solution for that, because it's like we need to, and we have this wonderful thing called technology that allows us to be pals with people wherever they are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I love that you're leaning into that as well. But I think, and the common theme of what everybody on this panel does is it's about uplifting, making your life better, because when your life is better, you can do anything. But you need to be able to see that it is possible. So what can people do to fine-tune that lens so they can see their way through those life implosions, life that happens, etc.? MJ, do you have a particular tool, suggestion, recommendation to help people get through to that other side?
Absolutely. And I wanted to say that the tool actually reminds me of what Jen said. She started talking about explosions because we were talking about implosions. And that led us to talk about how very often they exist together, the yin and the yang, right? Wherever there's joy, there's sadness. Whenever there's success, there's a little bit of failure. And what I do, I journal a lot. I mean, my go-to activity for anything is journaling. And one thing that I do is using two different columns. And on one side, talking about things that are weighing on my mind. And on the other side, I write about things that are bringing me joy, things that I consider to be part of my success. And this awareness of the two sides of the coin, I think, is really important. Finding ways to always remind you that, yeah, you're going through some tough times right now, but there are things that you can be joyful about, that you can be happy about. And you guys also mentioned how difficult it is when you are in the middle of a crisis to hear other people saying it's going to get better, etc., etc. And I think it's important to give yourself some room to feel sad and to feel discouraged. As soon as you put a time limit on that time, right? You don't want to spend too much time in darkness, but I think it's important to acknowledge that you're going through a tough time and allow yourself to feel those little nasty feelings.
You reminded me, I have a 2-minute rule. I like 2-minute dance breaks, but I also put 2-minute of a time limit of frustration, because that's enough to have that sort of, and then, okay, let's get back to that positive attitude. Let's get back to business. So yes, I agree with you that you need to give it some space, but I like I said, 2 minutes is, I remember a couple years ago when I had to move because my building was being torn down, and it was like my job for months looking at apartments and way too much information. But in LA at the time, everybody was renting apartments to use as Airbnbs. It was before that. I didn't realize until after I found somewhere to live that that's where all the apartments were. People were snapping them up. And the place that I really wanted, I got like an email at like 10 o'clock at night, sorry. And I'm like, I had my 2 minutes, and I'm like, okay, just means something better is down the line. So we do have to acknowledge that sometimes it's okay to be, the other thing that you said, and I love journaling as much as you do, because when you get things out of your head, out of your heart, then you can look at things objectively and make plans.
Yeah.
You could see things for what they are, which is outside of your body, rather than internalizing everything. So love that as well. So thank you. Jenny, what about you? What are your solutions to like get to the other side of trauma or life or what have you?
Yeah, so I have noticed it's very normal for women that I work with who go through these inner earthquakes to almost dissociate. They're not in their bodies. They don't want to feel the pain, so they're not in their feelings. They're sort of trying to get away from the feelings because the feelings tell us I'm going to die, metaphorically. So just to share a statistic, the organization Noon in the UK did some research on women in midlife, and it turns out that on average, by the time we reach midlife, women have gone through about 5 or more major life events. And so what I find is that it's very common for women to just say, I'm just going to power through. I just need to handle it. I don't have the time to fall apart. I have responsibilities. I have children. I have things that I need to do. And so that in the end is really unsustainable. So what we can do to get to the other side is, as I mentioned before, is to actually use practices or use tools that bring us back to our body. We, like MJ just said, we actually need to feel our feelings in order to move on, unless and until we embrace all of who we are in any given moment, we can't actually move on. And so the metaphor comes to mind of the beach ball that we're trying to keep underwater, right? It takes an enormous amount of focus and energy. And ultimately what happens is we'll let go at some point and the inflatable beach ball pops up and hits us in the face. And so that is the first step, is really to come back into your body, feel your feelings, learn some tools, learn some practices that can help you with that, so that you don't feel like this is the end of who you are. And that's the very first step to take.
Me time to just be.
To be, yeah. Get out of the doing and be with oneself. There's nothing more natural than being with oneself. We just forget that it's nature itself.
I think you should invent a pause button. Do you remember that? What was it? The Staples button? Why am I forgetting?
That was easy.
What?
That was
The
easy.
easy button. Yes,
That
the
was
easy
easy.
button. Thank you. But what we need is a pause button,
Mhm.
so we can. And it's so important to treat the time we have with ourselves with as much grace as the time we give to other people. So love that so much. Jen?
Well, that kind of flows directly into what I was going to say, which is spend some time for yourself doing something normal that takes you away from that being mired in the negative thoughts. You know, if it's with other people, if you're not an introvert, and if it's physical, so you can get endorphins going, that's great. I love dance, and so I would dance through my, dance my worries away.
Well,
But,
you cannot
to get out
dance
and go
to
for a
be
run or
unhappy.
go for a walk, just get out in nature. It just helps to leave it behind for a little while and find some joy in life for a little while each day, and then get back, and you're refreshed and rejuvenated to get back to what you need to do to get down to business. But you need to take some time to refresh.
And you are also a dance instructor, so you know what you're talking about.
It's my happy place.
But you can't dance and frown at the same time.
No,
you can't. It's impossible.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's finding the things that bring you that energy, whether it is something physical, and it's always good to do things that take you out of your norm.
Right.
For hitting the reset button.
Mm-hmm. And being out in nature really helps too. Just you get a different perspective.
Yes,
Being
and we're.
outside.
I was going to say we're all in. Most of us are in California, and MJ is in Florida. So we don't have things like. Well, it's cold and 60 degrees here. Don't be mad at us, East Coast and Midwest. I did my time, but when you can get out, even if it's for a little bit every day, that's going to be super helpful. The one thing you were talking about before was saying when people say it's going to be okay, when You know it will, but it doesn't feel like it. It's like someone saying calm down or take a breath when you're upset.
Yes.
It's like the worst thing
Awful.
ever.
Ah.
And I think it's almost like a boundaries thing. So what can people, all these are wonderful suggestions, but we also need to like carve out the time and tell our loved ones. So how do you set boundaries, or how do you articulate that need so you can do the work that you need to do?
I set hours. When I was job hunting, I pretended I was at work and that was my job search time. And then when it was the end of my work day, my job search time, I did like I used to do when I was in my job. I did my family stuff. I didn't drown myself in it 24/7, out of desperation, but I also made sure I had specific times that I was working on. That was my job while I was unemployed, was to find a job. So I think if you set those kind of boundaries and you make sure that you're taking care of each element, I think that helps.
So like treat self-care like a job.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of your schedule. Put it in your schedule. Sure.
I am so with you. MJ is nodding. MJ, what do you
I
think?
love this. And one thing that was very helpful that I learned throughout the years is actually to schedule your self-care before everything else. That includes exercising, moment where you're going to meditate, moment where you're going to vegetate. You need to put them in first, otherwise you won't find a spot for them.
Right.
Something else is always going to take over, and also to know when to schedule them. I've tried to do anything personal self-care after the hour of 8 a.m. and I haven't been able to. So what do? I wake up early for self-care. I do all of my meditation and Pilates, everything early in the morning, so I'm not interrupted. Something else in terms of boundaries, you talked about boundaries for yourself, but also for other people. I've been having very deliberate conversations with others about how they can help me and how basically how I would love for them to react when I'm having a crisis. Because people don't know. People will say the wrong thing, but my husband and I, we have this conversation all the time, and I also have it with my sisters. When I'm going through something, this is how you can help me. And it's very helpful for people to know. One thing that I've talked to my husband about um, is let me freak out. I need those 2 minutes, right? That Deb talked about. I need that time to freak out. And when I'm freaking out, please let me do it. Do not try to calm me down because I need it. So it works. I mean, talking to the people who care about you about how to better help you when you're having a bad time is so important.
That's awesome, because people aren't mind readers, and they get, especially our loved ones, they're going to be frustrated. So in saying, let me do this, rather than say, calm down, it'll be okay, which is probably like the worst thing they can say. It's good. It's setting the clear boundaries, but also the rules in what people can do to help you. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Jenny, what do you think?
Yes, I'd like to talk about the "I have no time" statement. There is something that happens that I am sure each of us on this call have experienced when a loved one has an accident, a good friend gets diagnosed with something, we are diagnosed with something. Time becomes very clear and very focused, and things that are not my number one priority tend to fall away. So I think that having time is really about having priority.
Mhm.
If your priority is to take care of yourself, to go into the cliche, put the mask on yourself first before you try to help anyone else. That is really what we're talking about. And in terms of boundaries, I would say very few of us actually have problems stating boundaries. We tend to not enforce the boundaries. And so what we are literally teaching people is, well, when I say that I need half an hour to myself, I mean, it's okay if you walk in 15 minutes because you can't find something in the fridge. That's what we're saying, right? So unless we're going to enforce that, and unless we say, I am not available right now, please close the door, right? Our boundaries will not be respected. So I would say learn not just how to set your boundaries and to communicate what you need, but actually enforce your boundaries. Respect yourself first. That's what you're teaching people. So that's my 2 tips.
Ooh, that's so good. Because it's true. It's very easy to say, okay, it'll just take 2 seconds. No, it's 2 seconds out of your time.
Yeah.
So, and one thing that, and I think this has been covered, but I will underline it, is to put those self-care times in your calendar and treat it with the same respect as you would do a meeting with anybody else. You should even treat it with even more respect because it's you. And when you take care of yourself, whether it is goal time or personal time or freak out time, then you are ready, willing, and better able to function, be productive, and get to the other side. And this is true in good times. It's not just in the crisis times. I think everything that we talked about is something people can do any day to maintain that balance and joy and verve in moving towards creating the life that they want. So at this point, I would love to ask you all to gift a goal to the audience. So what is something that they can do today, tomorrow, like immediately to really recalibrate themselves? Jenny, what goal would you like to gift?
Yes, I have found, I want to say something about confidence, because people talk about, I don't have confidence in myself. And I just want to reiterate that if you are living your life based on other people's definitions or limitations, that is usually where we become confused and overwhelmed and all the things. We have no time, I don't have space, I'm too stressed. There is a voice inside of ourselves that we all know. And when we can actually quiet the noise and even simply take a breath, that voice is there. And that's where confidence starts. It starts with trusting oneself. We actually do know what our next step is. We actually do know what we need to do next. It's quieting the noise around us, taking a breath, creating a small pause, and listening to that voice. Trust yourself. That's the very first thing. And that's something that you can start with right away.
I love that, like, confidence is a goal.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but it's really that I can do it that people forget. It's easy to forget when, if there was a stereo blasting in your ears, how are you going to be able to think?
Yeah.
So turn down the volume, and listening to yourself is going to help you achieve more because and yes, we all know the answers, but we need to take the time to ask the questions. So, Jen, do you have a goal to gift?
I have been very helped when I'm in a crisis situation, when I'm going through an implosion, by having some sort of adventure just to get away from it all. So I would say if you're going through something big, it's part of the self-care thing, but it's a bigger version. Like, do something that scares you, do something that's exciting, do something that's an adventure that takes you completely away for a little while. One time when I was going through a big thing, very down on myself, very mired in it, my husband took me rappelling in a cave.
Really?
And yeah, this big, deep cave, like 30, 40, 50 feet deep. And it was really scary. And I'm like, but, you know, it just kind of reset for a little while. It made me focus, lose all those thoughts for a while. And it really helped with confidence. You know, I did this rappelling thing. I faced this fear. You know, it was good to get away from it. And so I would say that if you're going through something big, if you can, it doesn't have to be something big or expensive, just something that kind of is a reset that takes your mind off of the troubles and helps you see something else outside of what's happening, and is a little distraction for a while. And then you'll be rejuvenated and ready to face everything else that's going on. So
Love it.
I think we also have to underline, you said this before, your husband is an accountant who takes you on adventures. I mean, talk about the enigma personality, right?
He's an accountant who switched careers in his 50s into law enforcement. So he's an anomaly. Yeah. He's
Really?
an adventurous guy. Yeah.
Really awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. MJ, what goal do you want to gift?
I want to go back to the idea of journaling, and I would love for everyone to try journaling at least once if they haven't yet. And if they have, to focus on that one prompt, which is to imagine your perfect life. I know it sounds so small, but it's a power of imagination and manifestation. Sit down, think about that person you want to be, the perfect life that you imagine for them, and write about it. Where do you see yourself? What are you doing career wise? What is your relationship with your family, with your friends? What kind of relationship do you have with your coworkers? Do you have pets? Do you travel? Write it as if you're building your life from the ground up. Don't worry about what you have now. Don't listen to the fears about what you think you might or might never get. Go ahead and just journal about those things that you want. And you will see the more you do it, the more you're able to refine what exactly you want and how to get there. If you never take the time to imagine that life, the chances of you getting there are very, very small.
You are beyond speaking my language, but we know this. But it's true. You have to give yourself that grace in that time, but that gift of imagining what is possible, because most things are possible. We just need to stop limiting what is based on what is, or limiting what could be based on what is. Yes, I did say it right. Oh my goodness, I knew this was going to be a great conversation. Did I know it would be this wonderful? Maybe, who knows? But I really am so appreciative of you all taking off your coats, sitting down, and just sharing the things that you've been through for the service of helping others. Where can people learn more about you, friends? MJ, where's the best place?
You can visit badassblackgirl.com. All my contact information is there. I'm also on Facebook under Michelle Jessica Logan, my married name. And I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Excellent. And Jenny, where can people learn more about you?
Well, at my website, jennycalcoen.com, or on LinkedIn.
Awesome. And Jen, where can people learn more about you?
I am just starting the Joy Scouts. I don't have a website yet, but I do have a Facebook group, Facebook page. So check me out at facebook.com/Joy Scouts with a Z.
Awesome. Okay. And you can go to, I am at the Deb Method everywhere, and you can go to thedebmethod.com/blog to get the recap and the links. And I always include everybody's LinkedIn as well. So if you are tuning in or listening or however you're enjoying this content, reach out via LinkedIn with a note and say that this is where we met. And again, so important, especially it's the beginning of the year. You know, my calendar is a little different. I start the new year in December, but we're toward the end of January, and a month. That's it. You don't have to like etch a sketch your life just because it's the end of January and you said, "Oh, okay, I blew my goals. I'll start again next year." No, every day, every week, every month is an opportunity to rethink your life, reframe your goals, and move forward. And if you are having a life explosion, implosion, whatever, or you're just stuck, listen to these words of wisdom and just do little things at a time to recalibrate yourself so you can see the other side and move forward to the life you want. Friends, what final thought would you like to leave people with? Jenny, final thought?
Believe in yourself.
Works for me. Jen?
I'm going to repeat something that my boss, Lisa Nichols, says, and that is fill your own cup and serve others from the overflow in your saucer. Make sure you're full, and then serve others from the overflow in your saucer.
Ooh, awesome.
I can't take credit, but I think it's a great way to live.
Well, obviously, it's been so good for you to be in this environment, especially with what you came through. So, yes, serve from the saucer. Love that. MJ, final thought?
Create a support system. Don't wait until you're in a crisis to have this support system, because you need to be able to use it in those moments. So when everything is going well, make sure you're building your support system.
Yes, because it's really easy when life is great to not think about what you need when life isn't great. So be prepared. Wait, that sounds like a Boy Scout thing. I love how everything's kind of like coming together. Thank you again, Jennifer Ballard, Jenny Calcoen, MJ, Fievre.
Perfect.
For sharing your life, your wisdom, your implosions, your explosion, and your zest for living that life you want. And thank you for tuning in, everybody, whether you're watching this as GoalChatLive or listening to this as the Deb Show podcast on the Marketing Podcast Network. We are glad you have chosen yourself and your life and your future by joining us today. Again, you can find me at the Deb Method everywhere, thedebmethod.com, and I am live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific, or you can subscribe to my podcast on your favorite place to get your podcasts. Okay, wait, that sounded, well, you knew what I meant. Anyway, life implosions do not need to be dead ends. They do not need to be a pit of despair. They are a wealth of opportunity. So what you need to do is choose yourself, take that pause, have an adventure, recalibrate your life and move forward. Go on out there, go for it, because we know you can do it.